Join us for a heartwarming journey of self-discovery as Bianca, a woman who has spent her life in the shadows, finds unexpected acceptance and love at Green Valley Farm. This touching tale reminds us that sometimes the greatest transformation happens when someone finally sees our true worth. Before we begin this story, comment below where you're watching from. The bus rattled along the dusty country road, its worn seats carrying Bianca toward yet another place where she wouldn't belong. At 25, she had grown used to disappearing into the background of other people's lives. Her small suitcase sat on her lap, containing everything she owned in the world. A few plain clothes, a hairbrush with a cracked handle, and a worn paperback novel she'd read 7 times. The driver called out, "Green Valley Farm, next stop." Bianca's stomach tightened. Her cousin Vanessa had arranged this job, making sure to remind Bianca what a huge favor she was doing. "Don't embarrass me," Vanessa had warned. "This is a temporary kitchen helper position at one of the most exclusive estates in the region. The owner is a friend of my husband's family." The bus stopped with a screech of brakes. Bianca stepped down, keeping her eyes on the gravel path. The sprawling farmhouse in the distance looked like something from a magazine, all restored wood and gleaming windows. Beautiful. Impossible. Not meant for someone like her. She walked slowly toward the gate, shoulders curved forward as if she was trying to fold herself away from the world. 25 years of being told she wasn't pretty enough, smart enough, or special enough had shaped her like water-shaped stone, gradually, completely. "You must be Bianca." The deep voice startled her. She hadn't noticed the man approaching. From the side garden path, Bianca glanced up briefly, then quickly looked down again. But that single glance was enough to take in his tall frame, strong hands, and eyes that seemed to see right through her practiced invisibility. "Yes, sir. I'm here for the kitchen position." Her voice was so quiet she wasn't sure he could hear her. The man stepped closer. "I'm Henrique Montero. This is my farm." Bianca nodded, still studying the ground. She tried to form a proper introduction, something professional and appropriate, but the words tangled on her tongue. Thank you for the opportunity. I can start, I'm ready to levanta," he said gently. Bianca looked up, confused. "It means rise up in Portuguese, my grandmother's language," Henrique explained. His eyes held hers steadily. "Here you are everything I expected." Bianca blinked, certain she had misheard him. Men like Henrique, wealthy, powerful, handsome, didn't speak to women like her this way. He was probably just being polite before showing her to the servants' quarters. "I can show myself to the staff area," she mumbled, trying to step around him. Henrique smiled, but something in his expression looked almost sad. "There isn't one. This isn't a hotel, Bianca. It's my home. And while you're here, it's yours too." He reached for her suitcase, but she clutched it tighter. "I can carry it. I'm sure you can. You've been carrying everything alone for a long time, haven't you?" His words weren't accusatory. They sounded like simple truth. Bianca followed him toward the house, her mind racing. She had expected strict instructions, tight schedules, and clear boundaries between employer and staff. This man was nothing like she had imagined. The kitchen took her breath away, spacious with warm wooden countertops, copper pots hanging from a rack, and a large window overlooking a vegetable garden. It felt like the heart of the home, not just a workspace. "This is where you'll help prepare meals," Henrique explained. "I can't cook to save my life, but I hate eating alone." He looked at her directly. "More than that, I hate the silence of an empty kitchen." Bianca nodded stiffly. "I'll make sure the meals are ready on time, sir." "Henrique," he corrected, "and we'll eat together." Her head snapped up. "Together? But I'm staff." "You're my guest who's helping with meals. There's a difference." He gestured toward a hallway. "Let me show you to your room." The bedroom was simple but beautiful, with a patchwork quilt on the bed and fresh wildflowers on the dresser. It was nicer than anywhere Bianca had ever lived. "Get settled in," Henrique said. "Rest if you need to. I'll be on the front porch when you're ready to talk about meals for the week." After he left, Bianca sat on the edge of the bed, heart racing. What kind of place was this? What kind of man was he? It had to be pity, or worse, perhaps some kind of game. Men with his kind of money and looks always had angles, reasons for their kindness. She unpacked quickly, arranging her few belongings in the dresser. When she looked in the mirror, she saw what she always saw: plain brown hair, unremarkable features, eyes that had learned to look down instead of forward. "This won't last," she whispered to herself. "Nothing good ever does." Bianca found Henrique on the porch as promised. His long legs stretched out as he thumbed through a farming magazine. He stood when he saw her. "Better?" he asked. "Yes, thank you." She kept her distance. "About the meals, what would you prefer?" "I'm not picky," he said, "but I'd like to know what you enjoy cooking." The question caught her off guard. No one had ever asked about her preferences before. I make good bread," she finally offered, "and simple stews." "Perfect." He smiled, and it reached his eyes. Honest food for an honest home. Over the next few days, Bianca moved through the house like a ghost, trying to leave no trace of herself. She cooked silently, cleaned thoroughly, and spoke only when spoken to, but Henrique refused to let her disappear. At dinner, he asked questions about her life, seeming genuinely interested in her answers. When she mentioned briefly that she enjoyed reading, a stack of books appeared in her room the next morning. When she hummed while kneading bread, he didn't comment, but she caught him listening, a small smile on his face. One evening, while washing dishes, Bianca heard piano music drifting from the living room. She finished quickly and slipped down, the hall drawn by the melancholy tune. Henrique sat at an old upright piano, his back to her, playing something that made her chest ache with its beauty. She must have made a sound because he turned. "Join me." "I don't play," she whispered. "You don't have to." He slid over on the bench. "Just listen." Hesitantly, she sat beside him, careful not to touch him. The music resumed, filling the space between them. Bianca closed her eyes, letting herself feel something other than caution for the first time in years. When the piece ended, she opened her eyes to find Henrique watching her. "What do you think about when you play?" The question slipped out before she could stop it. Instead of laughing at her, he considered the question seriously. "Freedom, connection, all the things that money can't buy." "You have money," she pointed out. "I have resources," he corrected. "There's a difference. Money is just paper. Resources are tools to build something real." He looked around the farmhouse. "My grandfather built this place from nothing. My father turned it into a showpiece to impress business associates. I want to make it a home again." "It's beautiful," Bianca admitted. "It's getting there." His eyes found hers. "Beauty needs time and care to reveal itself." Bianca looked away, certain he couldn't be talking about her. Yet something in his gaze made her heart beat faster. She excused herself quickly and retreated to her room, confused by the warmth spreading through her chest. The next morning, she tied a small blue ribbon in her hair, something she hadn't done in years. It was nothing, really. Just a small act. That was hope. No, she wouldn't call it that. Hope was dangerous. When Henrique saw her, his eyes lingered on the ribbon, but he didn't comment. Instead, he asked if she'd like to see the renovations he was planning for the old barn. "You don't need my opinion," she said. "Maybe not, but I'd like it all the same." As the days passed, Bianca found herself talking more, standing straighter. When Henrique mentioned a farmer's market in town, she suggested fresh ingredients they could find there. When he played piano in the evenings, she began to sit with him regularly, sometimes asking questions about the music. One night at dinner, she actually laughed at something he said, a real laugh that bubbled up from somewhere long buried inside her. The sound surprised them both. Henrique looked at her with such warmth that she couldn't look away. "There you are," he said softly. Later that evening, as she was closing the kitchen window, she heard a car approaching. Headlights swept across the yard as an expensive convertible pulled up. A tall, fashionably dressed woman stepped out, her high heels inappropriate for the gravel driveway. Bianca recognized her immediately. Vanessa. Her cousin spotted her in the window and waved with false cheerfulness. "Bianca, darling, surprise." Bianca's stomach dropped. The small piece she had found here was about to be shattered. Vanessa never brought anything but chaos and criticism. Henrique appeared from his study, clearly surprised by the visitor. "Can I help you?" Vanessa's smile turned predatory as she extended her hand. I'm Vanessa Clark, Bianca's cousin. I helped arrange her position here. She looked around appreciatively. I was in the area and thought I'd check on how things are. Going? Everything's fine, Bianca said quickly, stepping onto the porch. How you didn't need to come. Nonsense, family looks out for family. Vanessa's smile didn't reach her eyes. And I've been dying to see this gorgeous property everyone's talking about. Henrique invited her in politely, but Bianca could see the questioning look in his eyes. This wasn't a casual visit. Vanessa wanted something. As they entered the house, Bianca felt her newfound confidence starting to crumble. With Vanessa here, she would once again become the plain, forgettable cousin, the charity case, the burden. The walls she had cautiously begun to lower started rising again, brick by invisible brick. Whatever magic had been building in this farmhouse couldn't survive Vanessa's presence. Bianca was sure of it. Some beautiful things simply weren't meant for people like her. Vanessa moved through the farmhouse like she owned it, her designer heels clicking on the hardwood floors. She ran her manicured fingertips over furniture, glanced appraisingly at artwork, and made small sounds of approval that felt more insulting than complimentary. "What a charming little hideaway you have, Mr. Montero," she said, accepting the coffee Bianca silently offered. "So rustic, so authentic." "Just Henrique, please," he replied, his voice polite but cooler than Bianca had ever heard it. "And thank you. Authenticity is exactly what I'm aiming for." Vanessa crossed her legs and leaned forward. "You must tell me what brought you back from Europe. The social scene there is so much more sophisticated than our little corner of the world." "People who need sophistication usually lack substance," Henrique said simply. Bianca nearly choked on her coffee. No one spoke to Vanessa that way, especially men. Her cousin's beauty and charm typically had them stumbling over themselves to impress her. If Vanessa was offended, she hid it well. "How philosophical of you. Bianca, darling, you didn't mention your employer was such a deep thinker." "We don't talk about me," Bianca said quietly. "Of course you don't," Vanessa laughed, the sound like glass breaking. "My cousin has always been the silent type. Even as children, she'd just fade into the background. Our grandmother used to say, Bianca was born to be overlooked." Henrique's jaw tightened. "Some people speak because they have something to say. Others speak because they have to say something." The subtle defense made Bianca's chest warm, but Vanessa was undeterred. "So tell me, how is she working out? Keeping up with your expectations?" Vanessa asked, as if Bianca wasn't sitting right. "There." "I told her this position was a real step up from those little jobs she usually takes. Bianca exceeds my expectations daily," Henrique said firmly. "In fact, I've been thinking of expanding her role here." This was news to Bianca. She looked at him, surprised. "Have you? How interesting," Vanessa said, her smile tightening. "Well, family takes care of family. I just wanted to make sure she wasn't taking advantage of your generosity." Bianca's face burned with shame. This was what Vanessa always did, reminded everyone that Bianca was charity, a burden, someone to be tolerated rather than valued. "Actually," Henrique said, standing up, "I have some farm business to discuss with Bianca. Perhaps we could continue this visit another time?" Vanessa's perfect eyebrows arched in surprise at the dismissal. "Of course, I'm staying at the Hillcrest Hotel in town for a few days. Shopping, you know. Perhaps you could join me for dinner." "Henrique, I'd love to hear more about your European adventures." Henrique walked her to the door. "I'm afraid my evenings are spoken for, but thank you for stopping by." When the sound of Vanessa's car faded down the driveway, Bianca began clearing the coffee cups with trembling hands. "I'm sorry about my cousin," she said, not meeting Henrique's eyes. "She can be overwhelming." "She's a hurricane in designer clothing," Henrique replied, making Bianca look up in surprise. Her clothes from yesterday, she realized. They reached the fence at the same time. Up close in the daylight, Miguel looked even more imposing than he had in the rain, tall and broad-shouldered, with black hair that curled slightly where it touched his collar. His face was sun-darkened and serious, with lines around his eyes that suggested he was a man who had once smiled often but had forgotten how. "Good morning," Clara said, suddenly aware that she was wearing an old t-shirt and pajama shorts. Her hair hastily pulled into a messy ponytail, Miguel nodded in greeting. "I brought your clothes." My housekeeper washed and dried them. He handed over the neatly folded clothes through the fence rails. His fingers brushed against hers for just a moment, and Clara felt an unexpected jolt at the brief contact. "Thank you," she said. "How's the calf this morning?" Something shifted in Miguel's expression, a softening around the eyes. "He's doing well, already on his feet and demanding his bottle." "Lucky as a fighter," Clara said with a smile. Miguel's mouth twitched, almost forming a smile of his own. "You're really sticking with that name, aren't you?" "Absolutely. It suits him." A silence fell between them, not exactly uncomfortable, but charged with something Clara couldn't quite name. "I should thank you properly," Miguel finally said, "for saving him. Would you like to come over and see him? I was about to give him his morning feeding." Clara hesitated only briefly. "I'd like that. Let me just change first." 10 minutes later, she was walking up the dirt path to Miguel's farm, wearing jeans and a light sweater. The farm looked different in the daylight, larger and more well-kept than she had realized. Besides the main house and barn, there were several other outbuildings, and a large vegetable garden stretched along one side of the property. Miguel met her at the barn door. "He's in here," he said, leading the way inside. The calf was indeed up on his feet, standing somewhat wobbly in his stall. When he saw them enter, he let out a hopeful bawl and trotted forward, bumping against Clara's legs as if he recognized. "Hurt? He remembers you," Miguel said, sounding surprised. Clara knelt down, running her hand over the calf's soft head. "Hi there, Lucky. You're looking much better today." Miguel handed her a bottle of milk. "Would you like to feed him?" Clara took the bottle and offered it to the eager calf, who began to suckle vigorously. She laughed at his enthusiasm. He was hungry. He's got a good appetite. That's always a good sign. As they watched the calf feed, Clara found herself studying Miguel from the corner of her eye. In the soft light filtering through the barn windows, she could see the fine lines on his face more clearly, signs of grief or worry, etched deeply for someone who couldn't be much older than 30. "Have you lived here long?" she asked. Miguel leaned against the stall door. "All my life. This farm has been in my family for 3 generations. You must love it very much." He looked around the barn, his gaze distant. "It's all I know." There was something in his voice, not quite regret, but a hint of resignation, that made Clara wonder if he had ever wanted something different. "And you?" Miguel asked, turning his dark eyes on her. "Your aunt said you're a nurse in the city." Clara was surprised. "You've spoken to my great-aunt?" "Small community," Miguel explained with a shrug. "Everyone knows everyone. Elisa mentioned you might be coming to stay for a while." Clara focused on the calf, avoiding Miguel's gaze. "I needed a break from the hospital. After my mom died, I just couldn't face it anymore." Miguel didn't offer empty condolences or platitudes for which Clara was grateful. Instead, he simply nodded as if he understood completely. "When does the break end?" he asked. "I have 3 months of leave. After that, I'm not sure." The calf finished his bottle and began to nose around Clara's hands for more. She laughed softly, scratching his ears. "You're a natural with him," Miguel observed. Clara smiled. "I've always loved animals. We couldn't have pets in our apartment growing up, but I volunteered at an animal shelter through high school." A thought struck her. "I could help with him while I'm here. It would give me something to do besides stare at the walls and think too much." Miguel seemed to consider this. "He needs feeding every 4 hours, including through the night." "I don't sleep much these days anyway," Clara admitted. "And your place is just a short walk from mine." Miguel hesitated, then nodded. "All right." At dinner, she and Henrique talked about the gardens, his plans for the farm, books they were reading. Sometimes they sat in comfortable silence. Sometimes he played piano while she listened. The walls around her heart were still there, but cracks were forming. One evening, as they were harvesting tomatoes together, Henrique asked about her life before coming to the farm. "There's not much to tell," she said, carefully placing a ripe tomato in her basket. "Small jobs, small rooms in shared apartments, small life." "No relationships?" he asked casually. Bianca laughed without humor. "Men don't notice women like me. Not in that way. What way is that? She looked up, frustrated by his persistent questions. You know what I mean, I don't turn heads. Henrique set down his basket and faced her directly. Bianca, do you really not know how beautiful you are? The words hit her like physical pain. Don't. Don't what? Tell the truth. Make fun of me. Her voice cracked. I've never been beautiful. I know what I am. What you are, he said firmly, is someone who has believed lies for so long they feel like truth. But they're still lies. Angry tears filled her eyes. Why are you doing this? What do you want from me? I want you to see what I see. He stepped closer. Every day, you stand a little straighter. You speak a little louder. You're blooming, Bianca, right in front of my eyes. She turned away from him, overwhelmed. I need to get back to the kitchen. That night, unable to sleep, Bianca stood in front of the small mirror in her bedroom. She really looked at herself, perhaps for the first time in years. Her brown hair had gained highlights from working in the sun. Her eyes seemed brighter, her features more relaxed. Was that beauty, or just the absence of constant anxiety? Either way, she hardly recognized herself. A text message alert broke her thoughts. Her phone rarely buzzed. Few people had her number. It was from Vanessa. Meet me for lunch tomorrow, noon, cafe on Main Street. Important to discuss your situation. Bianca's stomach knotted. My situation, she whispered to the empty room. What did Vanessa want now? The next day, she told Henrique she needed to go into town for a few hours. He offered to drive her, but she declined, needing time to prepare herself for whatever Vanessa had planned. The cafe was crowded when she arrived. Vanessa sat at a prime table, looking immaculate in a white sundress that probably cost more than Bianca earned in a month. Darling, there you are, Vanessa called loudly, drawing attention. Don't you look rustic? Bianca smoothed her simple blouse self-consciously and sat down. You wanted to talk about something important. Straight to business. Fine. Vanessa leaned forward. I'm concerned about you, cousin. Living alone with a single man, working such long hours, people are talking. What people? Bianca asked. People who matter, Vanessa waved dismissively. The point is, it doesn't look proper, and after everything our family has done for you, what exactly has your family done for me, Vanessa? The question came out before Bianca could stop it. Vanessa's eyes widened in shock. Excuse me? We took you in when no one else would. We clothed you, fed you. You treated me like a burden, Bianca interrupted, surprising herself with her boldness. You made sure I knew I was unwanted every single day. That's gratitude for you, Vanessa hissed. I come here concerned about your reputation, and this is how you respond, by attacking me. I'm not attacking you, I'm just not shrinking anymore. The realization came as Bianca spoke the words. Something was changing in her. Vanessa's face hardened. Let's be honest, shall we? We both know what's happening at that farm. A wealthy, handsome man suddenly takes interest in plain, forgettable... Bianca, please, he's using you. The words stung, but not as deeply as they once would have. You don't know him. I know men like him. They play with simple girls from nowhere, make them feel special, then move on when they get bored. Vanessa's smile turned cruel. Face it, Bianca. The only reason he noticed you is because you're convenient and desperate. A month ago, even a week ago, those words would have crushed Bianca. They would have confirmed everything she believed about herself, but now they just sounded hollow. You're wrong about him, she said quietly. And you're wrong about me. Vanessa laughed. Really? Then why don't we make a little bet? I'm having dinner at the Hillcrest tonight. Bring your farmer Prince. I have a meeting with the accountant at 10. As he walked away, Alana called after him. Mateus. He turned. Thank you for trusting me with this. Something flickered in his eyes, an emotion she couldn't quite name. You're welcome, Alana, for... The rest of the morning, Alana worked with renewed energy, clearing years of neglect from the flower beds. By lunchtime, she'd uncovered dozens of perennials gasping for sunlight. She was so absorbed in her task that she didn't notice the sleek black car coming up the driveway until it stopped right in front of the house. A woman stepped out, tall, impeccably dressed in a cream suit that probably cost more than Alana had made in a month at her candy shop. "Excuse me," the woman called, her heels clicking on the pavement as she approached. "Is Mateus around?" Alana stood, uncomfortably aware of her dirt-stained clothes and messy hair. "He's in a meeting. Can I help you?" The woman gave Alana a cool once-over. "I doubt it. I'm Victoria Harrington. Mateus will want to see me." Before Alana could respond, the front door opened and Mateus emerged, followed by an older man carrying a briefcase. His face registered surprise at the sight of Victoria. "Vic, what are you doing here?" "Surprise visit," she said, moving past Alana as if she were part of the landscaping. "Daddy wanted me to check how the investment opportunities are coming along." She reached him and placed a manicured hand on his arm, kissing his cheek. "You've been ignoring my calls." "I've been busy," he replied, though he didn't push her away. "Victoria, this is Alana Parker, one of our new workers. Alana, this is Victoria Harrington, a friend from college." The pause before friend spoke volumes. Victoria barely glanced at Alana. "Charmed, I'm sure. Mateus, can we talk privately? I've made lunch reservations in town." Mateus hesitated, looking between the two women. "I still have work to do here." "It's the new French place you mentioned wanting to try," Victoria pressed. "Please, for old time's sake?" Something in his expression shifted. "Fine, let me grab my jacket." To Alana, he added, "The flower beds look great. Feel free to use any tools you need from the shed." As they drove away, Alana felt a heaviness settle in her chest. Of course, someone like Mateus would have someone like Victoria in his life. They made sense together, both educated, wealthy, sophisticated. What had she been thinking? She attacked the weeds with renewed vigor, channeling her frustration into physical labor. "Don't mind Miss High and Mighty," came Rosa's voice from behind her. The housekeeper had appeared with a glass of iced tea. "She comes around whenever she remembers Mateus exists." "They seem close," Alana said, accepting the drink gratefully. Rosa snorted. "Their families have been pushing them together since they were teenagers. Her daddy owns half the businesses in the county and wants to add this farm to his collection." "Are they engaged?" "Not for lack of trying on her part." Rosa sat on the porch step, patting the spot beside her. "But our Mateus, he's got his own. Mind, always has." Alana joined her, sipping the sweet tea. "She's beautiful." On the outside, maybe, Rosa's eyes twinkled knowingly. "You know, in all the years Victoria's been coming around, I've never once seen her put her hands in the dirt. Not once." They shared a smile at that, and Alana felt marginally better. Later that afternoon, Alana decided to explore the farm kitchen to plan for the Harvest Festival treats. The main house was grand but homey. Hardwood floors, comfortable furniture, family photos lining the walls. The kitchen was a chef's dream, modern appliances alongside vintage charm. As she examined the pantry, she heard the front door open. "And close, Rosa," Mateus called. "Are you still here?" "It's Alana," she answered, stepping out of the pantry. "Rosa went to town for groceries. I was just looking at the kitchen for the festival project." He looked tired. His earlier cheerfulness dimmed. "Find everything you need?" "More than enough. It's an amazing kitchen. My aunt's domain. She loved to cook." He loosened his tie and slumped onto a kitchen stool. "Sorry about earlier. Victoria doesn't always call before showing up." "No need to apologize. She seems nice." Mateus raised an eyebrow. "You're a terrible liar, Alana Parker." She laughed despite herself. "Okay, she's a bit intimidating." "She can be." He ran a hand through his hair. "We dated in college. Her father is an important business contact. It's from the moment I saw you getting off that bus, head down like you were apologizing for existing, yes." He moved closer. "Do you know what I saw? Someone who had been knocked down over and over, but kept getting up. Someone strong enough to survive. Being told they weren't enough, but gentle enough to still care about others." His words wrapped around her like a warm blanket, but the chill of doubt remained. "What if you're wrong about me?" "I'm not." His certainty was startling. "But if you need proof, fine, we'll go to dinner with your cousin. You can watch me ignore every other woman in the room, including her, because the only person I want to see is you." Before Bianca could respond, he turned to leave. At the door, he paused. Be ready at 6:30. Wear whatever makes you feel comfortable. You don't need to be anyone but yourself." After he left, Bianca sat on the edge of her bed, stunned. The conviction in his voice, the intensity in his eyes, it didn't feel like a lie. But a lifetime of being overlooked couldn't be erased by a few kind words, no matter how sincere they seemed. She opened her small closet and stared at her limited wardrobe, nothing suitable for a place like the Hillcrest. The nicest thing she owned was a simple blue dress she'd bought on clearance last year. It wasn't fashionable or expensive, but it was clean and fit her well. As she got ready that evening, Bianca took extra care with her appearance. She put on a little mascara, brushed her hair until it shone, and even added a touch of lip gloss. Not to impress anyone, she told herself, but because for once she wanted to see herself clearly. When she walked downstairs, Enrique was waiting by the front door. He wore dark pants and a crisp white shirt with the sleeves rolled up to reveal tanned forearms. Simple, but he looked more handsome than any man had a right to be. His eyes widened slightly when he saw her. "You look beautiful." The word still felt foreign when applied to her, but the way he said it, like a simple, undeniable fact, made it easier to hear. "Thank you," she said softly. "It's not much, just—" "It's perfect," he interrupted. "You're perfect." The drive to town was mostly silent. Bianca watched the familiar fields and fences roll by, wondering if this dinner would mark the end of whatever had been growing between them. Part of her wanted to tell Enrique to turn around, to go back to their safe, simple routine at the farm. But another part, a stronger part, needed to know the truth. The Hillcrest Hotel was the fanciest place in town, with a chandelier-lit dining room and white-clothed tables. As they entered, Bianca instantly felt out of place. Women in designer dresses and expensive jewelry populated the room, their laughter tinkling like wind chimes. Vanessa waved from a prime table near the center of the room. She looked stunning in a red dress that hugged every curve, her blonde hair swept up elegantly. Several male diners had already noticed her, their appreciative glances not even trying to be subtle. "Darlings, you came," Vanessa's voice carried across the room as she stood to greet them. She air-kissed Bianca's cheek and held her hand out to Enrique. "I was beginning to think you'd stand me up." "We wouldn't miss it," Enrique said politely, though Bianca detected a hint of steel beneath his charm. As they sat, Bianca noticed Vanessa had arranged the seating so that she was directly across from Enrique, with Bianca off to the side. A small but deliberate maneuver to make Bianca feel like an afterthought. "I hope you don't mind, but I invited a few friends to join us," Vanessa said with a practiced smile. "Ah, here they are now." A group of well-dressed people approached the table. Two couples and a striking brunette woman who looked like she had stepped off a magazine cover. "This is Monica," Vanessa introduced the brunette with a meaningful look at Enrique. "She just moved back from New York. She was a model." "How interesting," Enrique said without enthusiasm, his eyes barely leaving Bianca. Throughout the appetizers, Vanessa orchestrated the conversation to highlight the impressive careers and connections of her friends, while subtly reminding everyone of Bianca's humble background. The model, Monica, was seated next to Enrique, and Vanessa kept encouraging her to tell stories about her glamorous life. "You simply must tell Enrique about that yacht party in Monaco," Vanessa urged. "Bianca, you wouldn't believe the people Monica knows." "I'm sure it was very nice," Bianca said quietly. "More than nice," Monica laughed, placing her hand on Enrique's arm. "It was magical." The morning sun felt good on Anna's face, and the rhythmic movement of the horse beneath her brought back memories of happier times, of riding lessons when she was a girl, before money got tight, before her mother met the man who would become her controlling stepfather, the first man to teach Anna that love and fear often came packaged together. "You ride like you were born on a horse," Joan commented, as Anna easily guided Thunder around a fallen log. "My grandfather had horses," she explained, "not as beautiful as these, but he taught me the basics when I was little." Another piece of herself offered up, a small gift of trust. They reached the damaged fence around mid-morning. Joan dismounted and tied Star to a tree in the shade, then helped Anna down from Thunder. His hands were strong and steady at her waist, lifting her effortlessly. When her feet touched the ground, he didn't immediately step back, and for a breathless moment they stood close enough that Anna could see the flecks of gold in his brown eyes. João cleared his throat and moved away first, leading Thunder to the shade beside Star. "This shouldn't take too long," he said, retrieving tools from his saddlebag. Anna followed him to the fence, where a large oak had crashed through the top rails. "Can I help?" João handed her a hammer. "You can hold the E. Rails in place while I secure them." They worked well together, Anna steadying the wood while João drove nails with sure, strong strokes. The physical labor was satisfying, and Anna found herself relaxing despite the heat. She rolled up the sleeves of her shirt, not thinking about the scar on her forearm until she noticed João glance at it. The scar was thin but prominent, a souvenir from the time Eduardo had pushed her through a glass coffee table. Anna quickly rolled her sleeve back down, but João had already seen. "There's a creek nearby," he said, as if he hadn't noticed her discomfort. "Good place to cool off when we're done here." They finished repairing the fence just as the midday. Sun reached its peak. Both were sweaty and dusty from the work. "Come on," João said, leading the way through a stand of trees. "The creek's just through here." Anna followed, hearing the babble of water before she saw it. A clear stream running between mossy banks, shaded by overhanging trees. The sight was instantly inviting. João knelt at the edge and splashed water on his face and neck. "Go ahead," he said, moving aside to give her room. "It's the best feeling on a hot day like this." Hannah crouched beside the creek and dipped her hands into the cool water. It felt heavenly against her hot skin. She splashed her face, then her neck, sighing with relief. "My brother and I used to swim here as kids," João said, settling on a large rock nearby. "Drove our mother crazy, coming home soaking wet and covered in mud." Anna smiled at the image. "You must miss him a lot." "Every day," João said simply. "Lucas was full of life, always laughing, always ready for the next adventure." He picked up a flat stone and skipped it across the water. He was going to be a veterinarian, had just finished his first year of college when... He trailed off, unable to complete the sentence. Anna sat beside him on the rock, close, but not touching. What happened? The night of the accident? João was silent for so long that Anna thought he wouldn't answer. When he finally spoke, his voice was rough with emotion. "We'd been to a concert in the city. I was driving us home. It was raining, and a truck swerved into our lane on the highway." His hand unconsciously moved to his left side, where Anna guessed he had been injured. "I don't remember much after the impact. Woke up in the hospital 3 days later. Lucas never woke up at all." Anna reached for his hand then, her smaller one covering his. "It wasn't your fault." João turned to look at her, surprise and gratitude in his eyes. "That's what everyone said. But he was my little brother. I was supposed to protect him." The raw honesty in his voice broke something open in Anna. Without thinking, she said, "I know what it's like to blame yourself for something you couldn't control." João turned his hand to hold hers properly, his calloused fingers gentle against her skin. "Whatever happened to you, Anna, I hope you know it wasn't your fault either." For the first time since she'd arrived at the farm, Anna felt tears building. Not tears of fear, but of a deeper grief, of recognition. João saw her, really saw her, with all her broken pieces, and he didn't turn away. They sat by the creek for a long time, hands clasped, sharing the kind of silence that heals rather than hurts. "I just wanted you to know where I stand." Bianca looked down at their joined hands, then up at the farmhouse silhouetted against the night sky. 8 weeks ago, she had arrived here expecting nothing but another temporary job, another place where she wouldn't belong. Instead, she had found something she never expected, a chance to become the person she was meant to be all along. "I'd like to stay," she said softly. "Not just for the job, for whatever this is between us. I want to see where it leads." Henrique's smile lit up his entire face. He lifted her hand and pressed a gentle kiss to her knuckles. "That's all I needed to hear. As they walked toward the house, hand in hand under a sky full of stars, Bianca felt something unfamiliar but wonderful unfurling inside her chest. It felt like hope. It felt like possibility. It felt like coming home. But even as they reached the porch, Bianca didn't see the figure watching from the shadows across the road. Vanessa stood beside her car, her face twisted with anger and jealousy as she watched the scene unfold. "Enjoy it while it lasts, cousin," she whispered into the darkness. "No one chooses Bianca over me, no one." She pulled out her phone and dialed a number. When someone answered, her voice turned sweet as honey. "Hello? Is this the editor of the County Herald? I have a very interesting story about Henrique Montero, the heir to the Montero fortune, and his unusual relationship with his maid." The peaceful night at the farm was about to be shattered. The true test of Bianca and Henrique's budding relationship was only just beginning. The next 2 weeks were the happiest of Bianca's life. Mornings in the garden with Henrique, afternoons experimenting with new recipes in the kitchen, evenings on the porch watching the sunset. They moved slowly, carefully, both aware that what was growing between them was too precious to rush. Their first kiss happened on a Tuesday, while picking wildflowers at the edge of the property. It was gentle and brief, but it sealed a promise neither needed to put into words. Henrique never pushed for more. He seemed content to follow Bianca's lead, understanding that trust came harder to her than to most. Each day, she felt herself opening a little more, standing a little taller, smiling a little easier. "You're blooming," he told her one evening, as they walked along the fence line. "Like those late summer roses by the barn," she laughed. "Thorns and all?" "Especially the thorns," he replied with a grin. "I like that you're finding your edges." The comment warmed her. No one had ever celebrated her strength before, only criticized her weaknesses. Then on a bright Thursday morning, everything changed. Bianca was in the kitchen kneading bread dough when she heard Henrique's truck racing up the driveway, gravel, spraying as he braked hard. Moments later, he burst through the door, his face tense. "Have you seen this?" He thrust a newspaper onto the counter. The County Herald's front page featured a large photo of them at the Hillcrest Hotel, holding hands as they left. The headline made her stomach drop. "Montero heirs secret romance with hired help. Cousin reveals all." Bianca's hands trembled as she read the article. Vanessa had painted a picture of Henrique as a privileged playboy, taking advantage of his vulnerable, desperate employee. She'd described Bianca as simple and easily manipulated, and claimed she was speaking out of family concern. "I'm so sorry," Bianca whispered, flour-covered hands gripping the edge of the counter. "This is all my fault." "How is this your fault?" Henrique demanded. "Vanessa, she's done this because of me, because I stood up to her." Shame and anger warred inside her. "I should have known she wouldn't let it go." Henrique took the paper and tossed it into the trash. "I don't care about the article. I care about you. Are you okay?" His concern, when he was the one being slandered, touched her deeply. "Shouldn't you be worried about your reputation?" "My reputation?" He laughed without humor. "Bianca, I've never cared what people think of me, but this attacks you, uses your past against you. That's what makes me angry." The phone rang before she could respond. Henrique answered it, his expression darkening as he listened. "No comment," he said finally, and hung up. "Reporter," he explained. "The first of many, I suspect. My family name still attracts attention." "What do we do?" Bianca asked. Henrique ran a hand through his hair. "We have options. We could issue a statement denying everything. We could threaten legal action for defamation. Or," he looked directly at her, "we could just live our lives and not let Vanessa or anyone else dictate our story." The phone rang again, then again. Soon, Henrique unplugged it altogether. By noon, 2 news vans had parked at the end of the driveway. Henrique closed all the curtains and locked the gates. "This will blow over," he assured Bianca, though the tightness around his eyes betrayed his concern. But it didn't blow over. The next day, more reporters arrived. Someone had dug up information about Henrique's wealthy family, his time in Europe, and the fortune he stood to inherit. The story had grown beyond a local scandal into a juicy tale of wealth, power, and forbidden romance. Bianca felt the walls closing in. This was exactly what she had feared. becoming a spectacle, a problem, a burden to Henrique. Everything they had built together was being twisted into something tawdry and cheap. "I can't stay here," she told him that evening, as they huddled in the kitchen, away from the windows. "I'm just making things worse." "That's exactly what Vanessa wants," Henrique argued. "For you to run away, to believe you don't deserve happiness. But look what I've brought to your doorstep. Reporters, gossip, your name in the tabloids. This isn't what you wanted when you came back here." Henrique took her hands, forcing her to look at him. "You're right. It's not what I wanted. What I wanted was peace, honesty, and someone to share my life with. And I found all that in you." His words were like a lifeline, but Bianca was already drowning in doubt. What if this never stops? What if your family gets involved? What if we face it together? He squeezed her hands. "Bianca, I'm not letting Vanessa or anyone else drive you away, not unless that's what you truly want." Was it what she wanted? To leave this place that had become her home, this man who had seen value in her when no one else had? The thought made her physically ache. "I need time to think," she said finally. That night Bianca couldn't sleep. Around midnight she slipped out of bed and padded downstairs, drawn to the quiet of the kitchen. To her surprise, she found Henrique at the table nursing a cup of tea. "Couldn't sleep either?" he asked. She shook her head and sat across from him. "I've been thinking about what you said, about facing this together. And I'm scared, Henrique." The admission came easier in the darkness. "Not of Vanessa or the reporters. I'm scared of believing in this, in us, and then losing it all." "What makes you think you'll lose it? History, experience?" She gave a humorless laugh. "Nothing good in my life has ever lasted." Henrique was quiet for a moment. "My grandmother had a saying, 'Fear makes good servants but terrible masters.' Your fear kept you safe when you needed protection, but now it's standing between you and what you want. What if what I want isn't possible? What do you want, Bianca? Not what you think you deserve or what you're afraid to lose. What do you want?" The question hung in the air between them, simple but profound. What did she want? No one had ever asked her that before. She had spent so long trying to be small, to need nothing, want nothing, expect nothing. "I want to stay," she whispered. "I want to see the gardens bloom next spring. I want to wake up in this house and know it's home. I want—" Her voice caught. "I want you." The words once spoken seemed to light her from within. They were true, deeply true, in a way nothing else had ever been. Henrique's eyes shone in the dim light. "Then stay. Fight for what you want. Show Vanessa and the world that you're not running anymore." "How?" "By living our lives out in the open, with nothing to hide and nothing to be ashamed of." The next morning they had a plan. Not an elaborate scheme or dramatic confrontation, but something simpler and more powerful. They opened the gates. Henrique walked Bianca past the reporters, head high, her hand firmly in his. They drove into town together and had breakfast at the local diner, ignoring the stares and whispers. They visited the farmer's market, selecting seeds for next season's garden. They lived their lives, neither hiding nor performing. When reporters shouted questions, Henrique answered simply, "We met when Bianca came to work at the farm. We fell in love. That's our story, and the only ones who get to write it are us." The local paper printed his quote the next day, alongside a photo of them smiling at each other over coffee at the diner. It wasn't scandalous or sensational. It was just true. 3 days later, a sleek black car pulled up to the farmhouse. Bianca watched from the kitchen window as a distinguished older man in an expensive suit emerged. "It's my father," Henrique said grimly when he saw the visitor. "Stay here. Let me handle this." "No." Bianca surprised herself with the firmness in her voice. "We face things together, remember?" Henrique looked at her with a mixture of pride and concern, then nodded. Together. They walked out to meet Eduardo Monteiro, whose stern face and rigid posture radiated disapproval. He barely glanced at Bianca before addressing his son in rapid Portuguese. Henrique responded in English, his hand steady on Bianca's back. "We can speak English, Father. Bianca should hear whatever you have to say." The older man switched languages with obvious reluctance. "Very well. I've come to address this situation." The family name is being dragged through tabloids because of your indiscretion. My relationship, Henrique corrected, and there's nothing indiscreet about it. Eduardo's gaze finally settled on Bianca, assessing her with cold efficiency. So, you're the maid, causing all this trouble? Before Henrique could defend her, Bianca spoke up. I'm not a maid. I work with the gardens now, and I'm not causing trouble. Vanessa Clark is with her lies. Eduardo raised an eyebrow at her directness. Regardless, this circus must end. The family's reputation matters less to me than Bianca's happiness, Henrique interrupted. I won't end our relationship to satisfy your ideas about suitable matches. You always were stubborn, Eduardo sighed. At least consider a statement to the press, something to contextualize this connection. What would you suggest? Henrique asked warily. The truth, perhaps, that Ms. Clark had a personal vendetta and fabricated most of her story. That while you and Miss Santos, Bianca supplied. Bianca Santos. While you and Miss Santos are indeed involved, it's a recent development that began after her role at the farm changed. Eduardo straightened his tie. I can have our PR team draft something. Appropriate. Henrique looked surprised. You're not here to demand I end things with Bianca? Would it work if I did? When Henrique shook his head firmly, Eduardo almost smiled. You get that stubbornness from me, you know. No, I'm here to contain the damage, not dictate your personal life. You're 30 years old, Henrique, old enough to make your own mistakes, thought, or choices. The backhanded acceptance was more than Bianca had expected. Henrique seemed to feel the same. Thank you, Father. Eduardo nodded curtly. Now, perhaps we could discuss this inside, over coffee. The drive was long, and we have much to arrange, if we're going to get ahead of this narrative. As they walked toward the house, Eduardo fell into step beside Bianca. So you work with the gardens? He asked, his tone marginally warmer. Yes. We're implementing organic growing methods and expanding the vegetable plots. My mother, Henrique's grandmother, was passionate about gardens. She always said you could tell a person's character by how they tended growing things. Bianca smiled tentatively. She sounds wise. She was. Eduardo glanced at his son, walking ahead of them, and she would have appreciated anyone who could put that look on her grandson's face. Inside, as they planned their response to the scandal, Bianca was struck by how much had changed in just a few months. She had arrived with nothing but a suitcase and a lifetime of feeling unwanted. Now she sat at a table with two generations of Montero men, her opinion sought and valued. The official statement was released the next day. It was dignified and firm, acknowledging the relationship while condemning Vanessa's malicious mischaracterization of it. Eduardo's legal team also sent Vanessa a cease and desist letter, warning of defamation charges if she continued her campaign. The reporters gradually drifted away as the story lost its scandal factor. A wealthy farmer dating his former employee wasn't particularly shocking once the sordid insinuations were removed. Vanessa, furious that her plan had backfired, made one last attempt to confront Bianca. She arrived at the farm unannounced, her expensive car kicking up dust as she parked. You think you've won, she spat when Bianca met her on the porch, but we both know it won't last. Men like Henrique don't end up with women like you. Bianca looked at her cousin, seeing clearly the insecurity and bitterness that drove her. You're wrong, Vanessa. About Henrique, about me, about what matters in life. And I'm done letting you define who I am. He'll get bored with you, Vanessa insisted. Playing farmer with his little project girlfriend. It's just a phase. Maybe, Bianca said calmly. I don't know what the future holds, but I know who I am now. And that's something you can never take away from me. I'm not afraid anymore, Vanessa. Not of you, not of losing Henrique, not even of being alone. Because I finally understand that my worth doesn't depend on anyone else's opinion. Vanessa stared at her, clearly not expecting this composed, confident woman who bore little resemblance to the cousin she had bullied for years. Without another word, she got back in her car and drove away. Bianca knew with absolute certainty that Vanessa's power over her was gone forever. That evening, Bianca and Henrique sat on the porch swing, watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks. His arm was around her shoulders, her head resting against him. "How are you feeling?" he asked. "After everything?" Bianca considered the question. "Strong," she said finally. "Grateful. Happy." "No regrets about staying?" She turned to look at him, this man who had seen in her what no one else had. "None. This is where I belong." Henrique smiled and brushed a strand of hair from her face. "When you first arrived, do you remember what I said to you?" "Levanta," she whispered. "Here you are, everything I expected." "I meant it then, but I didn't realize how much more you would become." His eyes held hers with unwavering certainty. "You've exceeded every expectation, Bianca Santos." As the last rays of sunlight gilded the farmhouse, Bianca thought about the journey that had brought her here. She had arrived with her head down, shoulders curved, and soul folded, apologizing for existing. Now she sat tall, her heart open, claiming her place in the world without apology or fear. What Henrique had expected, what he had seen in her from the beginning, was not who she had been, but who she could become when someone finally believed in her. And in the end, what mattered most was that she had finally begun to believe in herself. "I love you," she said, the words simple and true. Henrique's smile lit his entire face. "I know." He leaned forward and kissed her gently. "I've been waiting for you to realize it too." As darkness fell, they remained on the porch, planning gardens and dreams, their voices carrying across the peaceful fields. Two people who had found in each other exactly what they needed. Not someone to complete them, but someone to remind them they were already whole. The lights of the farmhouse glowed warmly against the night sky, a beacon of home and possibility. And inside, Bianca had finally found what she had never dared to dream of. A place where she was not merely tolerated or accepted, but valued, chosen, and loved exactly as she was.